What if I told you that your peace has never been in other people's hands? Not in what they say, not in what they do, not even in how much they try to hurt you. The truth is, no one has ever truly made you angry. They've only revealed where you haven't healed, where your inner wounds still lie unaddressed. Most people spend their lives reacting, like emotional puppets pulled by strings they refuse to see or acknowledge. One careless comment ruins their day, one betrayal breaks their spirit, one misunderstanding turns into a full-blown war. But it doesn't have to be that way. The Stoics believe that real strength isn't about being untouchable by external events or emotions. It's about being unshaken, maintaining your inner composure, regardless of the storm. Your calm isn't supposed to be this fragile thing, constantly at the mercy of other people's moods, opinions, or mistakes. It's supposed to be rooted in reason, in clarity, in the part of you that can step back, breathe, and choose how to respond, not just how to react impulsively. The world will test you, that's a given, an inevitable reality of human existence. But whether you get pulled into its chaos, that's your choice, your ultimate power. This video is about reclaiming that choice. It's about learning how to protect your calm like it's sacred, because it is. It's the sanctuary of your inner world. Through the lens of Stoicism, we'll walk through some of the most powerful shifts you can make today. Not abstract philosophy or theoretical concepts, but real grounded steps you can take to stop being at war with everything external and start leading from within. And if these conversations speak to something real in you, something grounded in truth, philosophy, and inner growth, consider subscribing. It's a small gesture, but it helps us reach more minds like yours, and it quietly signals that you're walking this path with intention, with a commitment to your own evolution. The mirror of anger, understanding its true source. Let's talk about anger, not the kind that erupts in fire and fury, a volcanic outburst of rage, but the quieter kind, the kind that simmers beneath the surface, a slow burn that erodes your peace, the kind that lingers when someone lets you down or crosses a line you thought was obvious, a boundary they should have respected, the kind that sits in your chest and whispers, "How could they?" We often think our anger is about them, the person who was rude, disrespectful, careless in their actions. But here's the twist, the Stoic insight. More often than not, it's not about them at all. It's about the story you were telling yourself, the silent expectation you had that the other person didn't even know they were supposed to meet. See, anger shows up when reality doesn't match the mental script you were holding. You expected someone to be more thoughtful, more considerate. You expected loyalty or gratitude or a simple thank you for your efforts. And when you didn't get it, when the reality deviated from your preconceived notions, your mind screams, "This isn't how it's supposed to go." But who said how it's supposed to go? Did the other person agree to your terms? Did they even know what your terms were? Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That hits hard because what if your anger isn't just a reaction, a blind impulse, but a mirror? What if it's showing you something unresolved inside you, something worth exploring rather than suppressing or exploding over? Stoicism teaches us to challenge our assumptions, to examine the roots of our emotions. So if someone else's behavior makes you mad, the Stoic response isn't to lash out. It's to pause, to trace that anger back to its root, to ask, what was I hoping for that didn't happen? What belief just got threatened within me? Let's make this real. Your friend cancels on you again at the last minute and you're fuming. Not because of the cancellation itself, although that's annoying, but because somewhere in your mind there's a belief. People who care about me follow through. They don't flake. And maybe that belief comes from past letdowns, maybe from a place where you felt unimportant or forgotten. That's not weakness, it's human. But the key is recognizing that the anger isn't about this one canceled plan. It's about a deeper wound being touched, a sensitivity triggered. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And when it comes to emotion, especially anger, examining it is where the wisdom lives. Instead of reacting blindly, you start asking, why did this bother me so much? Why this and why now? And just like that, you go from being controlled by your emotions to learning from them, to using them as compasses. Aristotle believed that anyone can become angry, that's easy, but to be angry with the right person, at the right time, for the right reason, and in the right way, that's the hard part. That's the art. That's emotional maturity. So here's a simple practice. When you feel that rise of frustration, instead of clenching your jaw or firing off a hasty text, take a moment. Ask yourself, What expectation just got violated, and why was I so attached to it? You'll be surprised how often that single question can dissolve the intensity. Anger isn't your enemy, it's your compass, but only if you're willing to read it right to understand its true direction. The strategic power of silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. That might sound counterintuitive in a world that celebrates the loudest voice, the sharpest comeback, the most viral clapback. We've been taught that silence means weakness, that if you don't speak up immediately, you're letting someone walk all over you. But what if that's not true? What if in many cases silence isn't surrender, it's self-control? Let's be honest. Most of us have said something in the heat of the moment that we wish we could take back. A sentence we fired off without thinking. A text we sent in anger that we immediately regretted. A comment that burned a bridge we later wished to rebuild. But how often do we truly regret pausing, taking a breath, or choosing silence? Rarely. Silence almost never haunts you with regret. But angry words, they echo often for years. The Stoics were big on this. Seneca, one of the most quoted Stoic philosophers, said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." And he was right. When we react instantly, we're not responding from wisdom or careful consideration. We're reacting from impulse, and impulses are rarely wise. Think of silence not as passivity, not as a lack of will, but as power under control. That moment when someone disrespects you, challenges you, or throws shade your way, your immediate instinct might be to fight back. But if you can resist that urge and pause instead, something incredible happens. You start to see the situation clearly, detached from the emotional fog. You separate your ego from your values, protecting your integrity. You give yourself time to choose your response instead of becoming a slave to your emotions. When someone gets under your skin, it's not always about them. Sometimes it's a sign that there's something inside you that needs attention, an unaddressed wound or insecurity. And silence, just a few seconds of IT, gives you the space to notice that. Plato taught that a wise man speaks because he has something to say, a fool because he has to say something. Let that sink in. You don't always need to have the last word. In fact, when you choose not to engage in every little battle, you conserve your energy for things that truly matter. Silence becomes a filter. It lets nonsense pass while you remain steady, unshaken. And no, this isn't about bottling things up or suppressing emotion. It's about choosing your timing, choosing your tone, choosing your moment. The pause between stimulus and response, that's where your power lives. So next time you feel the fire rising, pause. Count to 5. Let them talk. Let them dig their hole if they must. Your job isn't to correct every offense. Your job is to protect your peace. As Epictetus once put it, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And sometimes the strongest reaction is none at all. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom in motion. Embracing lightness, the Stoics smile at chaos. There's something strange that happens when you stop taking life so seriously. Not in the careless, avoid your problems kind of way, but in the grounded, I'm not letting this nonsense steal my peace kind of way. Life throws curveballs daily. A rude driver, a passive-aggressive comment at work, a plan that gets derailed for the 3rd time this week. And yet we act shocked every time, like we expect the world to suddenly behave according to our rules. But here's a truth the Stoics knew well. Suffering increases when you demand that reality be different than it is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." And what better way to challenge that estimate than with a laugh? Because here's the thing, laughter isn't weakness, it's resistance. It's your soul refusing to be shaped by pettiness. It's the calm refusal to let small things become big burdens. When you laugh, you're not pretending the problem doesn't exist. You're just making it clear that it doesn't get to define your emotional state. Aristotle once said that laughter is a trait unique to humans. That tells you something. It's not just a social reflex, it's a tool. One we can use to cut through tension, to shrink problems down to their actual size, and to remind ourselves this moment isn't not everything. Think about it. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You can slam the horn, yell into the void, replay it for hours, letting it consume your mind. Or you can exhale and smile and are like, yep, there it is, chaos doing its thing. Same moment, totally different energy. The first keeps you tense and reactive. The second keeps you human, aligned with your inner peace. Carl Jung offered a perspective that adds another layer here. He said, even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. The message? Expect some mess, and when it arrives, choose how to meet it. Plato believed that comedy and tragedy were two sides of the same coin, intertwined in the human experience. And you see that in daily life. One moment you're frustrated, step back 5 feet, and suddenly it's funny. It's ridiculous. It's just life doing what life does. The real challenge is choosing your response. Not everything deserves your outrage. Not every hiccup needs a meltdown. Sometimes the most stoic move isn't silence or discipline. It's lightness. It's perspective. It's that quiet smile that says, I see the chaos and I choose peace anyway. So here's your new reflex. When something dumb happens, before you react, grin. Even if it's just a flicker. Even if you're still annoyed. Let that grin remind you you're bigger than the moment. You're not here to be tossed around by every little thing. You're here to move through life with grace. And sometimes that grace starts with a laugh. The dignity of disengagement. There's a quiet kind of strength in walking away from a fight you know you could win. Not because you're afraid, not because you don't have the right words or the sharper edge in debate, but because deep down you know peace is more valuable than proving a point. The real flex isn't dominating the argument. It's not needing to think about it at all afterward. How many times have you won an argument only to sit with that weird, empty feeling afterward? Maybe you were right. Maybe you made your case perfectly. But instead of feeling victorious, you felt agitated, heavy, maybe even a little guilty for the damage done. That's because the goal wasn't truth, it was control. And control rarely brings peace. The Stoics had a word for this: apatheia. Not apathy in the modern sense of indifference or lack of feeling, but a state of inner calm that isn't thrown off by other people's chaos or external disturbances. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire surrounded by conflict, wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't lower yourself to meet someone in their mess. Rise above it. When someone triggers us, it's rarely just about them. It's about what that conflict stirs up in us, our need to be seen, to be heard, to be right. But here's the thing, not every trigger deserves a response. Some just need to be observed and allowed to pass. Plato believed that self-mastery was the highest form of freedom, and that includes mastering your reactions. If you always need to have the last word, you're not free, you're hooked. You're on a leash pulled by anyone who knows how to push your buttons. But when you choose peace over pride, you become unshakable. This doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. This isn't about being passive or avoiding hard conversations when they are necessary. It's about discernment. It's about asking yourself in the moment, is this conversation worth my energy, or is it just noise? Because energy is a currency, and once it's spent, you don't get it back. Socrates famously said, "Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Weak minds discuss people." So when the conversation starts sliding into gossip, accusation, or ego-driven drama, consider whether it's worth participating in at all. Zoom out, ask yourself, what kind of life am I trying to build? Who am I becoming in this moment? Because the truth is, you can win the argument and still lose the connection, still lose your composure, still lose yourself. So maybe the real win is knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to defend your truth and when to simply walk away with your dignity intact. Not everything is worth a reaction. Save your energy for the moments that actually shape your future. Let the rest go. The game of calm, training your emotional reflexes. There's a kind of quiet pride in staying unbothered. Not in a fake I don't care kind of way, but in the deeply intentional way that says, I choose peace over pettiness. Because let's face it, life throws plenty of reasons to react. People cut in line, someone talks down to you, a message gets left unread. But what if you flip the script and turn those moments into training reps for your mind? That's where the Stoics were ahead of their time. They didn't aim to feel nothing, they aimed to master everything. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." So if someone's attitude ruins your day, it's not really their fault. It's a sign your inner world needs work, needs recalibration. Now here's a new way to approach it. Make calm a game. Seriously, start counting how many times today you could have reacted and didn't. That's your scoreboard. Someone cuts you off in traffic? You breathe, let it go. Boom, point on the board. Someone gives you a snarky comment? You smile and stay cool. Another win. It turns emotional self-control from a chore into a challenge. and something weird happens. When you gamify it, you start looking forward to opportunities to stay grounded. You begin to notice how much control you actually have over your emotional responses. Aristotle once said, "What it lies in our power to do, it lies in our power not to do." That applies perfectly here. You can always speak, you can always fire back. But it's the moments when you don't, when you choose not to react, that build character. That's self-mastery. That's how mental strength is formed. Carl Jung added another layer when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that every time you snap without thinking. You're being led by habits you haven't challenged. But when you pause, reflect, and respond with intention, you're rewiring your patterns. And let's be clear, this isn't about suppressing how you feel. That's not healthy or sustainable. It's about becoming so aware of your emotions that you know how to guide them instead of being guided by them. You're not pushing them down, you're lifting yourself above them. Plato taught that the first and best victory is to conquer yourself. That victory doesn't happen once. It happens dozens of times a day. In the comments you ignore, in the gossip you don't spread, in the thoughts you question before they become actions. So try it. Track your calm like a high score. Each moment you stay grounded is proof you're leveling up. It won't be perfect. But every time you choose not to react, you're proving to yourself that you're not here to be easily shaken. You're here to lead yourself, and that's the real game worth playing. The illusion of external scripts. There's this exhausting thing we do, most of us without even realizing it. We build mental scripts for how other people should behave. We expect our friends to always show up. We expect our partner to never hurt us. We expect our boss to lead with fairness and reason. And then when they don't follow that script, when they go off course, we feel disappointed, confused, even betrayed. But here's the part we don't always admit. The script was ours. We just forgot to tell them they were in a play we wrote. Philosopher Epictetus, one of the core voices of Stoicism, had a simple truth. Some things are up to us and some are not. That's it. That's the line. And it's a hard pill to swallow until you realize how much peace is hidden inside that awareness. Because the moment you stop expecting people to be different than they are and start focusing on how you show up in response, you reclaim your sanity. You suffer less when you stop arguing with reality. You stop waking up every day waiting for people to get it, for life to suddenly make sense, for the unfairness to correct itself. Plato once said, "Reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind." And that's what Stoicism encourages. A shift in perception, not perfection from the world around you. Carl Jung added depth to this idea when he wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Think about that. The longer you resist what is, the longer it owns you. The boss stays unfair. The friend keeps flaking. The relationship doesn't evolve. And every time you give your emotional energy to the same loop, why are they like this? That question never brings clarity. It just drains you. Instead, ask the question the Stoics asked. What is in my control right now? Not, can I make them change, but can I control how much space I give them in my mind? Can I control my reaction? Can I control whether I let their behavior dictate my peace? Socrates taught that the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. That includes your mindset. When you stop demanding that others behave in a way that comforts you, you become less reactive, less disappointed, and more grounded. You start living in reality, not in the fantasy version of how you wish things were. Acceptance isn't giving up, it's leveling up. It's saying, I see what this is. I don't love it, but I won't let it own me. Once you stop needing everyone around you to act right for you to feel right, you begin to feel a new kind of freedom, a calm that isn't dependent on conditions, a peace that isn't borrowed. It's built. And that's where your real power begins. Not everything is about you. Reclaiming your personal narrative. We're wired to take things personally. It's almost automatic. Someone doesn't text back. A coworker gives a cold stare. A friend pulls away without explanation. And our minds jump straight to self-blame. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Did I mess up? But here's the thing. Most of the time, it's not about you at all. The truth is people carry whole worlds inside them. Unseen stress, insecurities, distractions, pain. And sometimes you just happen to be standing close when those things leak out. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, said, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." That wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. He understood that most people act from their own noise, not out of personal attack. So why take their behavior so personally? When someone's actions sting, that's often a signal pointing back to something inside us. Maybe an old wound, maybe a need for validation. But the mistake is thinking it's always a reflection of your worth. It's not. Plato taught that we see the world not as it is, but as we are. Our filters, shaped by past experiences and emotional states, can twist a neutral event into something that feels deeply personal. So when someone snaps at you, your reaction might be more about how you interpret it than what they actually meant. That's why the Stoic practice of distinguishing appearances from reality is so powerful. You pause. You look again. You say, "What else could this mean?" Think of it like this. You're not the center of everyone's story, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually freeing, because it means you don't have to carry their energy. You don't have to fix their moods. You don't have to own their reactions. Aristotle said, "To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing." But even that wouldn't guarantee peace, because people will still project their inner chaos onto you. So what do? You create space. Emotional distance, enough room to say, maybe this isn't mine to hold. You remind yourself over and over, if needed, what if this isn't even about me? That single thought can be a shield, soft but strong. Socrates believed that wisdom begins in knowing how little we actually know. And that includes knowing why people behave the way they do. So stop filling in their silence with self-blame. Stop interpreting every weird mood as a reflection of your flaws. You are not responsible for the storm someone else is fighting. You're only responsible for not letting it drag you under. That's Stoic strength, responding with clarity, not confusion, holding your center, even when others lose theirs, and realizing that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is not to take it personally. Anger's deceptive mask, choosing inner calm. There's something addictive about anger. In the moment, it feels like armor. You feel sharp, alert, ready to strike. Your heart's pounding, your words get faster, louder. It feels like power, like control. But then the dust settles and what's left? Regret, distance. That awkward silence after something's been said that can't be unsaid. Broken trust that might never fully heal. Anger is a master of disguise. It shows up dressed like strength, like justified indignation. But deep down, it's often just fear or pain looking for an exit. It tells you that exploding is the only way to be heard, to assert yourself. But really, it's the easiest way to lose your ground, to compromise your peace. Anger is like that friend who hypes you up to throw hands and then disappear the second real consequences arrive, and you're left cleaning up the mess alone. The Stoics knew this well. When you react in anger, you might win the momentary battle, but lose the relationship, lose the respect, lose your peace. That discomfort, that urge to snap, it's often a flare from your own inner marred world, pointing to wounds or unmet needs. And if you can pause just long enough to examine it, you open the door to something far more powerful than anger. Awareness. Plato believed that true courage is knowing what not to fear. And sometimes what we fear most is looking weak. We think that staying calm is surrendering power, when in reality it's the highest form of control. The person who can stay centered when everything around them is spinning, that's not weakness. That's strength with roots, an unyielding inner fortitude. The Stoic view of fire was this: use it wisely, let it warm, not scorch. That means channeling the energy anger brings into something productive. Let it fuel a boundary, not a blow-up. Let it sharpen your clarity, not your tongue. Let it push you to act, but not to attack. Aristotle once said, anybody can become angry, that is easy, but to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way that is not within everybody's power and is not easy. That's emotional discipline. That's choosing your response instead of being owned by it. So next time the fire rises, pause. Not because you're scared to speak, but because you respect yourself enough not to burn everything down. You can be assertive without being aggressive. You can be clear without being cruel. You can stand your ground and still walk away with grace. Because real power doesn't come from yelling louder. It comes from staying calm longer, the liberation of letting go. There's a quiet weight we carry when we hold on to pain. Not the pain itself that comes and goes, but the story we attach to it. The grudge, the resentment, the replaying of what someone said, what they did, what they never apologized for. And every time you think about it, you feel that sting again. The same hurt just recycled through memory. It's exhausting. Here's the hard truth. The person who hurt you probably isn't thinking about it anymore. They've moved on. They're living their life, sipping coffee, scrolling through their phone, unaware that they still live rent-free in your mind. Meanwhile, you're carrying around their words like a fresh wound. But it's not fresh, it's old. It's scar tissue you keep picking at. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." In other words, don't let someone else's cruelty turn you into a prisoner of your own bitterness. Don't let their behavior dictate your inner world. That's not justice, that's surrendering your peace. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." That's the shift. Letting go isn't about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let it define you. It's saying, yes, this hurt, yes, it changed me, but I won't let it shape who I am moving forward. You take back authorship of your own story. Aristotle believed that we are what we repeatedly do. So if you rehearse resentment, if you practice bitterness, you become shaped by that energy. It becomes your emotional baseline. But you can choose to interrupt that cycle. You can choose to practice something else. Forgiveness. Not for them, but for yourself. Plato taught that the soul is harmed more by injustice committed than injustice received. When you hold a grudge, when you fantasize about getting even or proving your worth, you're prolonging your own suffering. You're tethering your peace to someone who may never make it right. So try this, just once. Say it out loud. This happened, it hurt, but it's over. Not because you're okay with it, not because it was fair, but because you're done letting it hold you hostage. Say it for your sanity, not their sympathy. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting it. It doesn't mean what they did was acceptable. It means you're done reliving it. You're done bleeding for someone else's wound. You're finally choosing to stop carrying something that no longer serves your growth. The Stoics didn't aim to become cold or indifferent. They aimed to live wisely, to let go of what they couldn't control, to stay grounded in the present, not dragged backward by the past. So maybe the real strength isn't in holding on. Maybe it's in saying, I've carried this long enough, now I'm setting it down. And then walking forward, lighter, freer, wiser. Leading by example. The wisdom of non-control, one of the quickest ways to lose your peace, is trying to manage everyone else's life. It sounds noble at first, wanting to help, to guide, to protect the people you care about. But somewhere along the way, it shifts. That helpfulness becomes control. And suddenly your mood is tied to their decisions. Your energy is spent chasing their change. And your sanity is hanging on whether or not they get it, whether or not they follow your advice. It's a losing game. Here's the truth. You can't control people. Not your partner, not your kids, not your parents. You can't control your friends, your coworkers, or that one relative who refuses to listen, no matter how many times you repeat yourself. Influence? Sure. Inspire? Absolutely. But control? That was never yours to hold. The Stoics were crystal clear about this. Epictetus, one of their great teachers, said, "Some things are in our control and others not." The problem is we forget which is which. We think if we just say it the right way, if we just care hard enough, people will change. But change doesn't happen on your timeline. It happens on theirs, if it happens at all. Carl Jung offered a powerful insight when he said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." Instead of trying to fix everyone else, start with yourself. Are you modeling the calm, clarity, and compassion you wish they had? Are you showing, not telling, what growth actually looks like? Socrates believed that true wisdom was knowing how little we truly know, and that applies doubly when it comes to other people's paths. You don't know what they need to learn or when they need to learn it, and trying to force the lesson on them often pushes them further away. Think about it. Have you ever wanted to listen to someone who constantly hovered over your choices, judging your every move? Probably not. Aristotle said, "The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation, rather than upon mere survival." That awareness begins with recognizing your limits. You can offer insight, sure. You can extend patience. You can hold space for them to grow. But the moment your peace hinges on their progress, you're in dangerous territory. You've handed them the keys to your emotional house. So what's your real job? It's not to micromanage grown folks. It's to lead by example, to stay steady, to show kindness without controlling, to give advice without expecting obedience. to release people from the unspoken contract that says, you must change so I can be okay. Let them walk their path, even if it looks messy, even if you wouldn't take that route yourself, because that freedom you give them, it also frees you. And in that space, you both get to grow, not through force, but through choice, through presence, through trust. That's real leadership. That's Stoic strength. And it's the path that actually brings peace, not just for them, but for you too. Rewriting your reality, the power of your internal narrative. It's wild how quickly the mind fills in the blanks. Something small happens. Someone forgets to reply to a message, interrupts you mid-sentence, or gives you a weird look. And within seconds, your brain has built an entire story around it. A story where you're the one who's overlooked, disrespected, or never quite enough. And before you even realize what's happening, you're not just reacting to what happened. You're reacting to the story you told yourself about what happened. That's where the Stoics bring us back to center. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, you don't have to turn this into something, it doesn't have to upset you. That line is deceptively simple, but it's everything. It reminds us that there's always a choice between the stimulus and the story we create around ET. We can jump straight into assumptions, or we can pause and examine the narrative we're spinning. Carl Jung had a similar insight when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, unless you start questioning the stories you've absorbed, maybe from childhood, past relationships, or even societal messaging, you'll keep reacting the same way and blaming the outside world for it. Here's where the ACE method comes in. Awareness, control, direction. First, awareness. Catch the moment your body tightens, your chest gets hot, or your mind starts racing. That's the signal. Instead of let it sweep you away, pause. Notice it. Second, control. This doesn't mean pushing the feeling down. It means slowing your response. It means taking a breath, counting to 5, or simply saying, wait, what's really going on here? And finally, direction. This is where the real power lies. You choose a better, more grounded interpretation. Maybe they didn't ignore you, they just didn't see the message. Maybe that criticism wasn't meant to hurt, it was just blunt. Maybe this isn't a personal attack, it's just life being messy as it always is. Socrates taught that the unexamined life is not worth living. And that's what this is about. Examining the meaning we assign to things before letting those meanings rule our emotions. Because most of the time, it's not the situation that upsets us, it's the story we tell ourselves about the situation. Aristotle said that wisdom begins in wonder. So wonder even when you're triggered. Wonder if the story is real or just familiar. Wonder if this is a chance to react the way you always have, or the way you wish you could. You can't always control what happens, but you can absolutely rewrite the script your mind runs with. And the more you practice it, the more you become the author of your response, not a character tossed around by your reactions. That's not just emotional intelligence, that's Stoic mastery. Dialogue versus combat, the Stoic approach to conflict. Let's be honest, most of us don't walk into an argument looking for clarity. We walk in looking for a win. Somewhere deep inside, there's that quiet voice saying, I need to be right. And that's where the trouble begins. Because once ego takes the wheel, the actual problem becomes a background prop. The conversation turns into a battle of pride, not a search for understanding. Socrates believed that dialogue, real, open, thoughtful dialogue, was the foundation of wisdom. But how often do we actually have those kinds of conversations? Too often we're not listening to understand, we're listening to reload, crafting our comeback while the other person is still talking. That's not communication, that's combat. The Stoics warned about this tendency. Epictetus said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Simple but powerful, especially when tensions rise in heated moments. The most radical thing you can do is stay calm. Not passive calm, there's a difference. That sting you feel during an argument. It's often less about what was said and more about what got touched inside you. Insecurity, fear, old wounds. If you can pause long enough to see that, you stop reacting and start responding. Now imagine approaching an argument with a different goal. Not to win, but to resolve. Not to dominate, but to connect. What changes? Try this next time. Lower your voice. There's a natural instinct to raise it when we feel threatened, but a calm voice disarms tension. It changes the energy in the room. It signals, I'm here to talk, not to attack. Then ask better questions. Instead of, how could you say that? TRRY, what made you feel that way? Instead of, what's your problem? TRRY. What are you really trying to say? Questions like that open space, not just in the conversation, but in the other person's mind. Aristotle believed that true wisdom lies in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. In arguments, that wisdom shows up in your ability to pause, to say, "Help me understand," not sarcastically, but genuinely. Those words can take the heat out of almost any conflict. And here's the thing, when everyone else is reactive, the calmest person becomes the anchor. They don't just calm themselves, they calm the room. People look to them because composure is magnetic. Strength that doesn't shout is rare, and rare things lead. So next time you find yourself in a conflict, don't aim to win the argument. Aim to keep your integrity. Aim to steer the room not by force, but by presence. That's how leaders move. That's how Stoics think. That's how real change starts. Your body's wisdom, the unconscious mind, speaks. Sometimes your body knows the storm is coming before your mind does. You're sitting there trying to focus, and suddenly your jaw is tight. Your chest feels heavy, your breath shortens, and then, almost like clockwork, something small sets you off. But if we're being honest, it wasn't that one comment or that little delay. The trigger was just the last drop. The tension had been building long before, and your body tried to warn you. Modern psychology backs this up. Carl Jung once said, "The body is the unconscious mind." That tight chest, that knot in your stomach, those clenched fists, they're not random, they're messages. Signals that something in your inner world is trying to get your attention. And most of us, we don't listen. We push it down, we distract ourselves. We stay busy until boom, one small thing turns into a full-blown explosion. And then we're left wondering, where did that come from? The Stoics understood this pattern even before we had terms like fight or flight. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. But how can we adjust our view when we're already spiraling, when the body's alarms are blaring? That's where bodily awareness comes in. When you notice tension early, you get a chance to stop the spiral before it takes over. Socrates believed that the secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Learning to tune into your body is one way to build that new. It means catching the signal before it becomes a scream. It means seeing the clenched jaw as a whisper, not a failure, but a prompt for self-awareness. Here's a practical way to start. Next time you feel that inner squeeze, pause. Don't react, just notice. Breathe in deeply through your nose. Hold for a second and exhale slowly. Then ask yourself, what am I really reacting to? Not what just happened, but what it's hitting inside you. Is it rejection? Is it fear? Is it an old wound getting poked? Plato said the body is the vessel of the soul. And if that's true, then learning to listen to your body is learning to understand your deeper self. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's how you become less reactive, more responsive, less chaotic, more composed. The world will keep testing you. People will keep saying things, doing things, forgetting things. But if you can stay tuned into your inner signals, if you can respond to your body like it's your teammate, not your enemy, you start moving through life with a kind of quiet strength that people feel without you saying a word. Your body is an early warning system. Don't ignore it. Respect it. Work with it. That's not just emotional intelligence. That's stoic resilience built from the inside out. Guarding your attention. The currency of your life every day, your attention is up for grabs. And not just from ads or notifications, but from people. People who want a reaction. People who push your buttons, test your patience, pull at your energy. Some do it with good intentions, others not so much. The internet troll who leaves a snarky comment, that coworker who thrives on drama, the ex who reappears just to see if they still have access to your emotional space. They all want something from you, even if it's just your emotional presence. But here's something the Stoics understood deeply. Not everyone deserves your reaction. Not every voice deserves your energy. And one of the most overlooked ways to protect that power is being selective about where you place your attention. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist persists," meaning the more you engage with things that drain you out of anger, out of pride, out of habit, the more those things grow in your mind. That one negative comment turns into an inner dialogue. That petty coworker consumes your day. That message from your ex, it reopens wounds you were finally starting to heal. And you wonder why you feel exhausted, scattered, frustrated. But it's not just what's happening around you, it's what you're choosing to give your energy to. Socrates believed that the key to a meaningful life was not in knowing many things, but in knowing which things matter. That's the filter you need before you respond. Before you even notice something, ask yourself, does this deserve me? That's a powerful shift. Instead of reacting to everything, you start curating your mental space like it's your most valuable property. Because Aristotle taught that the mark of an educated mind is to entertain a thought without accepting it. You can see the drama, hear the insult, witness the chaos, and still not take it personally. You can let it pass, you can scroll by. Not out of indifference, but out of discipline. Because here's the truth. Your attention is currency, and if you spend it on nonsense, you go broke where it actually matters. On peace, on clarity, on creativity, on joy. Every response you give to something that doesn't deserve you is energy you've taken away from what does. So protect it. Guard it like it's gold. Because it is. The more you master your attention, the more you master your life. You become less reactive, more focused, more intentional. And slowly, without even announcing it, you step into the kind of calm that people notice but can't quite explain. You don't owe your presence to everyone who demands it, especially not the ones who haven't earned it. Let them scroll by, let them fade, and keep your eyes and your energy on the life you're building, not the noise trying to pull you away from it. That's Stoic living, quiet, clear, unbothered. The alchemy of gratitude, transforming chaos into calm. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective can change everything. One thought, one moment of awareness, and suddenly the emotional storm loses its grip. That's the quiet power of gratitude. It's not flashy, it doesn't yell, but it has this almost magical ability to calm the chaos within. Now think about this for a second. You can't be genuinely angry and genuinely grateful at the same time. Try it. Anger says, this isn't fair. Gratitude says, but I still have something. It's like trying to walk in two directions at once. You can't do both. And that's why gratitude is the ultimate reset button for your emotional state. The Stoics understood this in their own way. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor dealing with betrayal, war, and illness, wrote, "Don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, think of the blessings you do have and how much you'd miss them if they were gone." That's not just a nice idea, it's a strategy, especially when your emotions start running the show. Carl Jung pointed out that no tree, what it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Gratitude doesn't mean pretending everything's fine when it's not. It means acknowledging the darkness and still seeing light. It's the act of anchoring yourself in what's real, not just what's wrong. Plato taught that the soul becomes wise through reflection. And what is gratitude if not reflection in motion? It takes you out of the spinning story in your head and brings you back to the present, to what's still good, still true, still yours. And when you do that, even in the middle of a mess, you give your nervous system a break. You soften, you breathe again. So here's a practical challenge. Next time you feel that heat in your chest, that tension in your jaw, that urge to lash out, pause and name 3 things you're grateful for, right there in the moment. Not big things, just real things. Maybe it's the roof over your head. Maybe it's the friend who checks in. Maybe it's the fact that you have the self-awareness to even pause. Socrates believed that contentment was found not by adding more to life, but by subtracting false desires. Gratitude does exactly that. It strips away the should-haves and why-me's and gets you back to what's real and enough. And from that place, you respond better. You think clearer. You move with intention instead of impulse. Anger narrows your world. Gratitude opens it. Anger sees the problem. Gratitude sees the full picture. It doesn't fix everything, but it helps you see clearly enough to make a better next move. That's the cheat code. Not because it avoids reality, but because it roots you in a better one. So no, gratitude won't erase the problem, but it will give you the clarity to stop being consumed by it. And sometimes that clarity is all you need to turn the moment around quietly, powerfully, stoically. Your peace was never about the noise around you. It was always about the strength within you. And every time you choose clarity over chaos, presence over reaction, you're not just surviving, you're becoming. If this spoke to something real in you, there's more waiting. Tap into the next video on screen. It was made with the same heart, the same depth, and the same mission. To help you rise, not just react. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Antifragile. Your presence here means more than you know. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and when the world pulls, return to your center.